All right, it is 7:00 p.m. It is the time for our April 10th, 2017 Aleppo workshop meeting. Can we please come to order and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please. Present.
Vice President Jim.
Present.
Mr. Scholar. Present. Mr. Williams. Mr. Dara, sorry.
Present.
A
little slow, but it's okay.
And Andrew Patterson.
Here.
Well, good evening, everybody. Before we get started, we like to remind everybody that we are recording these meetings. You can't see our sign because it's hidden behind the screen, but please be aware that these meetings are recorded. So they are put onto the internet. Anything you say can and will be saved perpetually. So be on your best behavior. With that, I will entertain a motion to approve the March 20th, 2017 legislative meeting minutes.
So moved.
Before you vote, I gave some corrections to, they had me making some motions on March 20 when I wasn't here, so
Okay.
those corrections have been made.
All right. So let's, can we amend your motion to approve them as corrected?
As corrected.
Okay.
I second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say no. Motion carries. Thank you. We have a special guest with us tonight. I presume you are AJ Schwartz.
Yes, okay, from special.
AJ Schwartz is of Environmental Planning and Design. AJ,
Well,
take it away.
I believe you guys want to talk about townhomes and R2 and CRD zoning. And I guess I'll kick it back to you, how you want to get started. I do have some background in terms of what you guys have been talking about. I had a chance to look at Harlan and Chris's memo. And we can jump right in, or I'll leave it to you to figure out kind of where you want to talk about the memo specifically and the options that were laid out, or first blush thoughts, how the heck did we get to townhouses in R2 in the first place?
Well, yeah, why don't you do that? Why don't you tell us? I mean,
Okay, well, they've been there for a long time. So you guys do have a history of doing planning with your neighbors. So you had gone through the joint comprehensive plan, and that was with Glen Osborne and Swift. And one of the recommendations that came out in specifically Aleppo was Weber's Corner. The notion was to create a little node, and that's what the orangey spread spot is. Your districts, other than that, creating that district really largely stayed exactly the same. Now, you do not have you don't have shared zoning districts. You do share land uses with your neighboring communities, meaning things like sexually oriented businesses are taken care of by one community, group residents are taken care of by another community, but you don't necessarily have shared districts. So in the case when we were actually making the zoning changes, the fact that R2 was in those districts, and again, Masonic Village is a good example. While they didn't necessarily have townhouse buildings at that time, there was discussion they may build that. There's a lot of discussion of them doing something more like St. Barnabas, where they had a full gamut of different housing options, for residents to be able to choose from. There was no change. So what is in the ordinance today is a reflection of what you had in the ordinance for a number of years. One thing that I think Harlan and Chris pointed out in the ordinance is when I look at the map and the zoning map and I compare it to the aerial over there, or if I'm on Google looking at it, you do have a fairly restrictive environmental control. So there's a lot of lots that appear that they could be developed, but given the steep slope criteria and the soil criteria you have in the ordinance, a lot of those parcels would be almost prohibitive for things like multifamily, like a townhouse. So there are a few infills that townhouses could get built on, which I think is the case of what you're seeing on Weber Road in terms of what's been proposed. So some of the options, will take care of that. I think it can be a fairly small, if you do want to do anything, it can be fairly small and surgical. You don't need to make huge changes. It gives you a little context.
Well, I guess I'm encouraged to hear that because I had, before we heard from you, I kind of was under the understanding that if we made any moves up to Weber Road, it could have the potential to have ripples that could go all over the place. You don't
Give you a
feel?
little context.
I don't know. I mean, I kind of interpreted it as some amount of FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
I'll write that down.
But
Well, I think if you begin a process of rezoning, we may focus on one particular aspect, but that opens the door.
Don't disagree with that. You're absolutely right about that. You can open the door to other things and some unintended consequences, so to speak. Again, in the R2 district, you do have instances where back when the ordinance was changed, where you had literally townhouse development already, that style development. And so the great question was, do you make those types of things non-conforming? In the case of the Masonic Village, you would have potentially some buildings, particularly when you come in off the one entrance, those buildings, it looks like there's maybe 8 units in those buildings. By definition, they would comply with the townhouse. If you make a change to that, you have to be aware that there's a ripple effect, and maybe that's what you're getting at, that can cause some problems down the road, because anytime they want to do something, they're now going to have to go to the zoning hearing board to get a variance because you made them non-conforming in that context. Whereas the buildings in that development will not be non-conforming because you would allow other types of housing. And then the PRD is that's that very dark brown area. I mean, that's historic in terms of that development being there, and it's has lots of different stories behind it. So nobody at the time really envisioned, nobody in the community. And again, you're a different board, and probably a different planning commission than who was working at the time. But nobody really saw a reason to change it, and hence why the map and the ordinance.
Why would you zone property R2 as opposed to R1 or R3?
And what do you mean?
Well, I mean, it seems to me that there must be some reason for zoning property with different, what you can do and what you can't do.
Well, your lot size changes too.
Okay.
So when you're looking at the ordinance, you got to make sure you're also looking at the distinction in terms of lot size. Well, I'm allowed to have a single family home. You do allow different lot sizes. So the R2 was just, and again, when you look at the average lot size, and particularly in that Weber Road, right in that area, I think that's pretty much a reflection of the lot size that's allowed there is a reflection of the way it had been developed over time. That lot size is different than when you get into the yellow, or the very light yellow. Because the very light yellow is always envisioned to be the very low density. And that's also the areas where you have your steepest slope. That one that Gwen had just pointed to, that's that valley, down by Glen Osborne, which those slopes are probably 50%. So when you have terrain like that, it warrants itself to want to be a bigger lot size. So that's why. I mean, when you're sitting there making a decision whether something's R1, R2, or 3, there's a lot of factors that go into that. But don't judge it just based on the uses. There's also the lot size. That's a big difference.
so, which of the options that Harlan and Chris laid out do you favor?
Well, okay. So my understanding, Gwen had given us some context in terms of what was triggered it, in terms of bringing it to your attention, and maybe we should revisit. Yes, there is, as I said, there's some places in the R2 I could see terrain-wise where there's a large enough parcel that will meet the minimum lot size that somebody could actually get 6 units per acre. And it would be infill, and maybe that would be caused just like the one that's proposed is triggered. We never thought this could happen, and all of a sudden we got a lot more neighbors than we ever thought. I think if you literally take an area and maybe rezone it for R1. Because you got other places like the Masonic Village, I don't think you want to go and change that or strip out townhouse from that because you'll create other problems with the non-conformance. So repainting a strategic area to maybe R1 is the better way to go. It's probably the least restrictive, and it's also the one that will cause the least problems for property owners down the road. Because again, whatever you change, if there is a townhouse there, now they gotta go to the zoning hearing board, and anytime they wanna do something, they're straddled with that non-conformance status. The setbacks and all that kind of stuff carries with that non-conformance status.
Is there a greater demand for R1 property than there is for R2 property in terms of developers?
Oh, I don't think I can answer that. I'd have to go look at real estate transactions. You'd have to look at it over a period of years. And honestly, since '08, it's a little, when the housing bubble kind of burst, patterns changed. I think there is a trend that people want to see smaller lots. And there clearly is a trend of higher density. We do not see nearly as many of those single-family homes like on 1 acre lots as we did 15, 20 years ago. There is a change in that respect. Whether that's because the land value is higher and it's harder for somebody to buy it, whether they can get the mortgage, again, that's a function of land value. Or myself, there's 3 of us in our household, grass. I don't touch it. I did that when I was a kid. I'm done. That's just a lifestyle kind of thing. So not sure how I can answer that. But we do see people want
Well,
towns.
guess where I'm coming from is if you zone the property that we're talking about or rezone the property we're talking about, so townhouse development would not be a permitted use. Are we taking away what is in fact the most likely, highest and best use of the property? And therefore not in the best interest of the township as a whole to do that?
And that's one of the things you have to weigh. And I go back to the case, your question, maybe better to very strategically repaint certain areas so that there are one and not strip away townhouse carte blanche throughout the entire R2 district. Because I think there's viability of R2 elsewhere. I mean, you've demonstrated that over the years. There's a market for people wanting to have that. And in some of the options, kind of take that away off the table completely. I would recommend, unless there's a lot of discussion and there's really compelling arguments to that, I'd stay away from it for the reason you're getting it. You're from a property owner standpoint, you're losing some flexibility. And who knows what the market, the market changes, right?
And how is repainting one area as R1 not spot zoning?
If you're literally extending existing districts, that's not a spot zoning.
Okay.
There's not and Chris can answer this probably a lot better than I can. There's no litmus test for what constitutes a spot zoning. There's theories of if somebody's getting economic benefit from being treated differently than somebody else in the immediate geographic area. There's no planning text that says they gotta have at least 3 parcels in a zone to make it not eligible or smell of spot zoning type of thing. But if you're able to extend an existing district so I can build off an R2 district, then it's just an expansion of an existing district. So you're not giving any economic favoritism to those lots that you'd be changing.
I got you. So you're saying if we had R2 and we put a spot of R1 right in the middle,
That would be a problem. And again, the litmus test is, I can't tell you, well, if I make it 500 lots in size, that burning hole, is it now a new district, right? Or if it's just 5 lots, is that a spot? There's no litmus test of how you come up with that. But if you can literally take something that you're building off of that already exists, your legal legs, you have standing on that. You have protection of that.
So how would you go about defining the area that we would be repainting?
Well, can you point to which specifically are the lots that?
This is the neighborhood we're talking about.
Yeah.
This is the Weber Road neighborhood. This is the McCoy neighborhood.
Yep, yep.
This is the fire station right here. And this is the Weber's Corner, which actually has houses on it. So this is the section for if you're responding to the people that came to the meeting and wanted to talk about it, it would be this neighborhood here. This over here this is Redgate, this is Masonic here, this is Lower Redgate, the Horse Farms,
Where's the townhouse development now?
right up in there.
And my, apologize for not remembering whether I was here or not here. They want to continue to develop more? What
No.
is the issue?
There are several other
They don't want it
properties.
developed.
There are several other properties up there that they are afraid will meet the
Oh,
same
okay.
pace.
So it's not that this developer has said, I want that lot.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it
So
could,
they're just looking for a zone, some
The
secure
residents came in
zone.
here and said this, we are upset that this happened this
Okay.
time, but we recognize that there's nothing that can be done now. It's
Now.
too late.
But that's
But
preventing.
there's these two other lots up there too, right? Glenn, 2 lots?
Well, couple areas that they could put together, but there are a couple bigger parcels that could be squished together to make another area.
This
and
sound
again,
like a
when
big
you
deal.
look at your terrain, it will take that, because when you go through your formula of your environmental protection, they're gonna lose probably 50%, if not 60% of the land area because it's restricted because of your red bed soils or your steep slopes. You guys spend a lot of time putting that provision in.
And that's the hash marks, the green hash marks
Correct.
across all these zones.
So what you're saying is even if somebody wanted to do a townhouse in there, a good bit of that property would not
If I'm a
qualify.
mass developer, that's not an ideal location. If I have a parcel, and again, there are some parcels I could see, yes, the terrain would allow you to get 6 units. I think that's what the neighbors are questioning, is that density different than the rest of the density?
And this is a flat area right here. So
Yeah.
this would be a place where they could
I
get
mean, they could do it.
top rail right here.
You could do it, it's a characteristic. So to answer your question, from Weber's Corner, the orangish red down on this side of the PRD, maybe that's what gets extended in terms of the R1. So you're just growing the R1. But you keep the R2 district on the other side of the PRD,
Mhm.
you maintain that as is. And I mean, there's pretty tough terrain over on that side as well. It is a lot, though. You guys were topographically challenged. But you do have a higher density over on that side of the community. So make this become kind of that yellow, and whether you follow a row pattern or whatever, and keep that R2 intact, and still allow townhouses there. Because what I don't think you want to do is make a lot of those buildings non-conforming, because if you take it completely out of R2, that's what inherently you do. And I think you're gonna, down the road, property owners will be grumbling about it.
Because that second patch of R2 that you're pointing out, there's no townhouses there now, are there?
No, this is Merriman, so this is all Masonic right in here.
Mm-hmm.
And then these are some single-family homes. This is Rhodes Avenue, so that's single-family homes this way.
Yeah, I get your point though.
But
But there's some flat ground, so somebody could get in 6-12 units, depending upon how big the parcel is. And that would be your example of the neighbor saying, wait a second, the density is a little different than the rest of the neighborhood. And when you look at the aerial photo, there are larger lots, but single-family lots.
And would changing this to R1 then create the brand new townhouses that haven't been built yet? They would end up being non-conforming in this section if it was changed to R1.
Yeah, well, and that's what I was saying, if there's a way of in carving out, using the rows to carve out, where's their parcel again?
Right here. Like right on the edge of the township.
Yeah, if you're able to somehow kind of keep, whether this portion could stay, these are pretty small lots.
This is the section, this is the part, and these right here in question is the area that's in question.
The neighbors that are not happy.
The area that they fear could be developed is right in here.
Yeah, the problem
Yeah,
is,
see, the only way is I can't keep them round
No, right,
and satisfy the neighbors at the same time, because I will be, if
That's
that's where
fine.
you're going with the spot zoning there, I'd be I defer to Chris, but I'd be really nervous. about it.
Where is the area that the homes are going in?
Right.
Okay, and you said that right next to them.
It's catty corner.
Yeah.
It's right. It's
It's like,
And
it's
a
like 4
portion of,
lots, 5 lots. on
and some of the
side.
the land that they're concerned that could develop more is actually in Hayesville. Hayesville. So,
That has nothing to
we-
do.
right, this board could control right to here, but if they want to build something right here, then you can't control that. So,
That's-
So an R1, a change, painting R1, doesn't affect the present builder. He's got his townhouses, right?
Right.
That's all
Well,
taken care of.
it
It
we may or may not affect the owner of the lots that the residents were concerned about, because we don't know whether that individual thinks his lots are better, have a better value as townhouse lots than single family.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I have another
So we
question.
don't know that, but
We
they
don't
did
know.
complain that they.
no, but that's not necessarily
Not
the owner
everyone,
of the.
but right,
of the
that's
lot.
okay, that's right,
Commissioner Dara's point is very
Right.
well taken.
Yeah,
The owner of
that
that
is-
lot could
because it could be.
be
the
waiting
owner.
waiting for payday. To
Right. Sitting there waiting for
Retirement.
development. Yeah.
And the conversation has been about townhouses, but correct me if I'm wrong, we're not talking about duplexes and other kinds of multifamily. We were just, if you want to go the path of taking the townhouses out of that, it still would allow other kinds of multifamily, which is a higher density.
Correct.
So taking just townhouses does not eliminate the
Well,
higher density
That
issue.
wouldn't address the residents'
Yeah.
comment.
That would aggravate.
For example, yeah, that's a good point. Duplex is a permitted use in R1 and a conditional use in R3.
Correct.
So if it would change, that would be something that would be allowed.
Duplexes in R1, so even if it changes,
Duplex is permitted in R1 and conditional use in R3.
that doesn't, it's still multifamily, even if it's changed to R1, other kinds of multifamily are still allowed.
Duplex bothers me less. I don't know why. I mean, I would suspect a duplex would bother the resident less.
The residents' primary concern is automobile traffic. It's not the density
not
of the
looking at
structures
it.
there.
And then there are other concerns like group care
Although
home is a
the-
conditional
the-
use in R1. It's not permitted in R2. So I mean, there are.
So group homes are permitted in R1.
So I think, isn't the simple question, does changing it to R1 minimize the density potential?
Yeah, I would say it minimizes the density potential. There's few lots that are flat ground, you're not gonna get 6 units. per
And that
acre.
addresses the issue.
You may get 2 units per acre. It's the notion that there's still, if you
Well-
consider a duplex multifamily, it's still.
The current owner of those undeveloped parcels might not view it as
I
addressing
agree.
the issue.
That's, I think.
And they are the
that's
ones that would
crux
more
of
than
the
likely
problem.
challenge it as spot zoning, should we do that.
Do we know who those owners are?
One of them, but I only by hearsay, I don't know them.
Do we know? Could they be invited to come to a meeting?
If we can find them.
Well, wouldn't there be hearings involved if we
Oh,
do
yeah.
this?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
they would have their
All those.
opportunity.
But before we even get
Public
that
hearings.
far, can't we ask them?
Yes, why not?
And do you want me to specifically invite the owners of the lots that their neighbors are concerned about? Or do we want something a little broader reach? What if it's 10 owners in that area, or,
Well, anybody whose property would be affected by the zoning change, I think, should be invited to comment.
that's
Yeah, I think,
everyone?
I think you have to legally, because it's not comprehensive, you would have to notify everybody within 300 feet of the lots that are changing. So all the lots that are changing, and then the couple neighbors that are, in the yellow now, the bright yellow now.
Well, again, that's when we get to a hearing stage. But I'm saying,
No, before you get to the hearing stage, you
Legally, you're correct. What I described is what you need from a hearing
Yeah.
stage. But if you're trying to to be perfectly honest, and I'm speaking very candidly, if you don't have to change all the ground in that area, I would try to do that. The problem is where the proposal is down on that border, and I don't know a clean way to make that be a different color than the rest of the ground. That's the problem. right? And if there's a way of having, but you kind of nuked it in terms of bad description. So you put that one off the table in terms of these are the areas. And what I was trying to do is keep a finger of brown coming through here, but you're saying some of the opponents, the ones opposed are right here, that's gonna be a problem.
And a lot of these look like little tiny parcels, but they could be consolidated into, or if somebody came in and bought them.
Right,
Back
and they bought
taxes.
them all.
So it's, this right here is where the townhouses are gonna go on these two lots, but then there are people that own these. I believe this is open, all these little tiny ones, some of these are, haven't paid taxes since 1917, so they're, I don't know, the guy lots that no one's ever really owned.
So we're fundamentally, that little pod, you can see the grass right there, yep. That's what we're talking about right there.
We are talking about right here, yep. Yep. Right in here,
You know, we've heard from 2 residents.
and here too, right here.
And who were those 2 residents again? That was Justin Davis and
Mike Dugan.
Mike Dugan.
So wouldn't it be appropriate to hear from 2 existing landowners who are not developed yet? Informally?
But they came in to complain, those two.
Yes,
They're the only 2 that complained.
to our knowledge. And they had some legitimate points. We did a traffic study, an informal traffic study. That was one of the issues. The other issue is just people
They
don't like
want
change.
townhouses.
They don't like change.
Well, again, listen, remember, you guys didn't change anything. That ordinance was, the pattern of having those uses.
No, the change was looking at townhomes.
Correct.
It had nothing to do.
Understood. Policy wise, you've
Right.
been toeing the same line for 20 years.
Right.
That's,
There was a disconnect in their information. They thought they were gonna be $150,000 to $200,000 townhouses, and the proposal for the ones that have been approved is they're gonna be in the $400,000 range. Can't be all that bad to look at. I have to ask, given the results of the traffic study, informal though it was, doesn't seem to be a lot of substantiation for the complaints that were made.
Chief said, you're absolutely right.
So why are we trying to change the zoning at all?
I don't,
For 2 complaints?
I mean, if we had to vote tonight, I don't think I'd be in favor of going through the process of changing a zoning at this point.
For 2 complaints.
Do you see any harm in broadening the comments from the community? You know, talking to one of these other substantial landowners?
I think if we're gonna consider moving forward, I think it would be appropriate to informally engage the property owners who would be affected by a change to see what maybe they'd love it. I doubt it, but maybe they would. But I think we need to know that before we start any formal process.
Well, if that requires a motion,
What about just not changing it? Just leaving it as is?
I don't think I have enough information to say either way right now. I mean, I think I agree with Dan. If I heard it tonight, I don't have any reason to go forward with the change. But I'd like to hear a little bit more before I make my decision.
Well, the other thing, tidbit that I got from listening as closely as I could, that when they were advised that they were not 200 or 180 or $200,000, but 400,000, I got the feeling that they went, oh, so
And that you
If
told
you-
them that? Who said, oh,
I don't recall.
were they
right now.
there and told
But-
that these were $400,000 townhouses?
Yes.
They were, okay.
I just don't
And
remember who.
you, and that made a difference when they were told?
I had the
that?
feeling it did.
I don't know that I
wouldn't
would
bet
go along with
I wouldn't bet my
They-
house on that.
I would
But I
like,
think it would be appropriate, since to get all the information out and have everybody look at the same information and then question them again as to whether this is something that they
That they
really,
want to
really,
pursue.
really desire. And if,
I mean, I think it's a huge, huge job. I mean,
it is,
we're not just, it's a lot of changes.
What would be the third-party cost that we would incur if we were to go down this road all the way? There's obviously legal
To make
costs.
the changes to the ordinance.
Yeah.
So it's a map. I mean, procedurally, you're having a map change and you have a map change, you're not making a text change, it's just changing the map, going back through the county in terms of that. Couple hours to change the map and go through then the public hearing, somebody to answer questions of whether you want somebody to be there for that. I don't think there's a huge cost in terms of making the map
Okay.
change. I will say this, again, could I really want to draw on this, but it is nice and big. I mean, it's almost like it would be better somehow make that all yellow and keep that brown if there was a way of doing that. Because there's a lot of parcels in there that will be changed. That's where I think you were going. So that the change to people's, what they can do with their property, losing the townhouse as an option now, is pretty significant. So
Which
to
would
change
be
the
yellow?
map, I would make this the yellow. Far enough over here, so you're away from your opponents.
And yellow means what?
R1.
R1. Which
So-
allows single family and
I'll pass that
duplexes fund now.
The boxed in is the
You
yellow.
would just put the,
So people who are living there, people who own property there.
People who are living there in existing
But there's
structure,
probably.
They're
what's your
fine.
guess?
they're fine, they get a pretty
But
lot.
let's say they have a 2 acre
So little, you
lot
can't do
or a
anything.
1 acre.
And this is, but
Okay.
what you're talking about being yellow is where the new townhouses are gonna
The
be.
concern is with people who have property that can be developed.
Maybe I'm off a little bit.
Right now, it's a single family, or townhouse, or other multifamily. This is proposal to take away the
And that would be
townhouse
yellow.
option.
So this whole boxed in area.
I'm just trying to minimize the number of people, the lots that are, their zoning's changing.
That's the bulk of them though. I mean, if you make the whole black outlined area. This is Glen Mitchell and this is Weber coming up here. So it would be everyone kind of in the top half of Weber would be changed to yellow and everyone on the lower part of Weber, here's the fire station coming up around the bend on Weber. This lower part would stay townhouse eligible and this part could be duplex eligible.
This is a matter of curiosity. We approved that single-family development from Minnock months ago. Has anything happened in terms of a developer agreement or anything?
I think he now has the developer's agreement, but he was waiting for a couple county approvals and they took longer than I think he expected. So we don't have any developer's agreement signed yet or any building plans yet.
Well, unless anybody has a motion that they want to put on the table tonight, I would suggest that we put this on our agenda for next week and think about what we want to do. And I would say that I think at this point, a motion next week would be appropriate to either
Table it,
abandon this,
table it.
table it indefinitely. Another way to go would be a motion to have the property owners come in if we want to continue to go down the road. again, I think let's,
That makes sense.
let's think about it.
Let's put it on the agenda for next week.
And again, I mean, the memo kind of outlined you could take uses out of the district and add to a district. I'm not sure, because as you saw, you still allow duplexes. You would have to make other changes. If that's gonna get their higher, there's gonna be other stuff that's gonna get their higher too.
Mhm.
This, I think, is the path of least contention, so to speak, but you can also see it staying exactly as it is, because you've been toeing the path for all these years.
Okay, well, I will,
Thank you.
thank you very much for coming in.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, AJ. And we'll send this to Justin Davis and Mike Dugan, send this conversation to them, and we'll put it on the agenda for next week.
Yep.
All right. Thank you all.
Thanks, AJ. I'll let you know what's next.
Next on our agenda for tonight is township rebranding. I hope you all have seen our spiffy new signs popping up around their community. Have you seen them?
Nice job.
Where are they?
Really like that.
They're all over the place.
They're beautiful.
Everywhere along the
Good job.
entrances to the
What
township.
does it say?
Okay, so we're-
Welcome to
Welcome
Old
to
Township.
Township.
You knew
You're
that.
going down here, Ron?
I
When you go
haven't
down,
seen
it's the green pole, the green sign.
Recycling.
Oh,
Just come back to it.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, if you might, probably miss it on Red X, you have to count the importance, where you're going.
I had
New
to
station
correct
there,
that,
too.
but yeah.
Well, then we're going to talk about
Remember,
that, I
Red Gate's
think.
where they wanted to put the bike.
And then I think Kim did a very nice job of taking the logo and creating a new stationery, et cetera.
Right.
Are we going to talk about that, Gwen?
We are gonna talk about that. You have two options in your,
Good night, Deb.
Thank you,
Good
AJ.
night. Thanks.
Good night.
in your packet. We have two versions of the sign that don't include the welcome to, thank you for visiting. So the goal here is to get a new logo that we can use on a lot of our communications. Letterheads, envelopes, official Earth Day logos, all kinds of things like that. So we have two options here. We have one that's a little more squared off with the bumped out trees on the top. And then we have one that's a complete oval with the oval inside. And then these fonts can be changed. We can tweak these fonts or whatever. But I will echo what George said, is that I gave Kim two big files and said, hey, figure something out, please. And she did a great job. So really great job figuring out how to create the letterhead and manipulate the files that I can't do.
I like the oval.
So do I.
I do too. Well, it sounds like,
Yes, so we kind of got, a lot of people said they like the oval. And so we thought that maybe the oval would be good for the logo. And then when we get new signs, or when we're gonna replace street signs at some point, we'll do the bump out at the top, so.
Good idea.
All
I
right.
like the oval.
Okay. Do we need to move?
Yes.
I make a move that we adopt the sign as the oval sign
For the letterhead,
for the letterhead
for the bump out, for
and the
the,
bump out
for the road sign.
for the road sign.
Good.
Second.
All right, so the motion is that we adopt oval
For the letterhead.
logo for letterhead. And
Bump out for street signs.
okay, is everybody okay with that motion?
Mhm.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Anything else, Gwen, with respect to township rebranding we need to talk about?
We already mentioned the signs. The guys have been around, they've stained all the signs green and all the posts green to match the signs, and they've hung up, I think they might have 3 left to do, so they've been going around and replacing them. And we'll be adding signs on Waterworks. We don't currently have signs. We have a small section of Waterworks Road, so we're getting 2 more made so we can have new posts and mark up our section of Waterworks Road also.
Great.
Have we found any territory we didn't know we had?
No.
All right, anything else with respect to township rebranding? Okay, next is the QV-COG recycling resolution. Go ahead.
Do you want to go?
No,
Okay. This is a scaled back version of what we had discussed the last time. She got the feedback from all the communities and tweaked the resolution and tweaked the plan slightly. This one would just ask the communities to join the recycling committee for the purpose of performing multi-municipal grants, recycling activities and applying and receiving grants. That we would designate the municipal manager, public works director as representative to the committee. The COG would apply for any Act 101 grants on behalf, but would return the funds to the communities after subtracting the amounts that we would contribute for recycling days. So they're not taking our money, which is a change that she had. So they will be the figurehead, but they will redistribute the money back to us. And that has to do with one of the intricacies of the applying for the grants, that they are eligible for more if they do it that way. And we would be responsible for programs that we directly administer, meaning any curbside recycling, if leaf collection or any other activity, we would still do that. So we're not ceding any of our waste management contract duties to the COG. So it's a
So if we
contract.
keep what we've been doing, which the community seems to like, why would we do this?
Well, part of what they wanted, some of it's thinking,
Participation.
yes, and some of it's thinking a little bigger. They have some brainstorming ideas at this point of down the road creating a regional recycling center. So like a drop, like Edgeworth has a smaller drop-off center. They're looking at trying to come up with ways to get a bigger one to serve all the communities with more functions. So
And we still have to pay a fee to them?
no, they're going to do the application, but we would get it back. We would not
We
be.
would get
No,
it
no,
all.
if
You're
you're-
saying
$200.
after we
If you're a
pay.
customer of the recycling center, you're gonna pay the fee depending on what it is you're getting rid of.
Well, that's down the
But that's
the
way down the road.
recycling center.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
we're in a year one of a 5-year contract.
What she's trying to do is you have to understand that this really fits into a bigger picture about the COG. Okay. The COG has up until now operated solely on dues. So we pay dues to the COG, they take those dues and they do programming based on those dues. The recycling events in the past were an example of that. Those things were funded by dues to the COG. She is trying to make, my understanding is that she is trying to make sub-activities of the COG be a little bit more self-funding so that she's getting revenue streams that are above and beyond just dues. Because she wants the COG to be bigger and be doing more things, but she does not want to increase dues to pay for more things because she's afraid that some communities will drop out. So she's trying to find ways to make little self-contained COG activities that sort of pay for themselves. And she's trying to use recycling as one inroad to that, to set a model for a new activity approach in the COG. Am I saying this accurately?
You
That's
said it
it.
better than I, yes.
That's
Yes, this is a small portion of trying to change the way the COG works.
But it's not costing us anything. Which she will apply, and then we get the money back.
Sort of,
Pardon me?
sort of.
What sort of?
Well, she's gonna cover her costs.
Okay.
And then we only get $200 from this, so
Oh, okay.
yeah, we're not losing any.
It's not huge.
It's
Our exposure is low. I mean, even
Yes.
if it turns out that we get stung in a way that we don't anticipate, we would lose
Worst case is
$200.
$200.
But this, we could. I don't even know if
But
she's
she
asking for a
needs
vote yet, so
our
I think that would be next week anyway. We
The
don't
vote would be next
here.
week anyway, and certainly what we can do is we can, as we're going to do with Mike Dugan and Justin Davis, we can send this conversation to her and ask her to comment if we have questions between now and next week, so we know what we're voting on. So if you have questions, and the
If
questions,
I described it wrong,
the
yes.
questions that I'm hearing so far are, does this cost us anything?
What, I mean, is she proposing that this mythical recycling center that's gonna be created down the road is gonna take material that we can't have waste management come to our front door and take away for us?
No, I don't think that's.
I don't know. I mean, we don't know. We can't say. If back in 10 years, Waste Management might not offer that service anymore. We don't know. We're not, doesn't have a site. She doesn't have a plan. She wants to form this committee to envision what might happen.
Yeah, there's no doubt that we give this, again, the bigger picture here is that she's trying to come up with new approaches for the COG. when she applies that new approach to recycling, we in Aleppo give her, I think, a little bit of problem because we have single stream recycling and at your door service. So we have service in Aleppo that other COG communities do not have. And
Because they choose to do their refuse management in a different way than we do.
correct.
I mean, it seems to me that if somebody wanted to have a good recycling program right now, they ought to do something similar to what we've done, which COG could be the vehicle for doing a larger contract with Waste Management or any of the other companies that want to bid on it. Well, forecast right now, next week, I'm going to move that we respectfully decline to participate. I just don't see the point of it.
I'm going back to something I thought you said, is that she needs our participation for the bigger picture.
I would
Even
rather, I
though
would
we're
rather have
getting the
her
money-
explain that
Yeah.
directly. I don't want you to take what I,
I mean,
please say what I
why,
say.
if we're already doing it, why is it necessary that Aleppo has to be part of anything?
I think, to go with what Matt says, I think it's, the goal of this is more to create the committee to guide the COG in this activity. They can create a committee and everyone gets together and says, we don't want to do anything. But she's trying to create a structure, so it isn't just COG board members at night saying something and COG managers during the day saying something opposite, and she's saying, I'm not really sure. Let's formalize our committees that will form what the COG is going to work on. What she's trying to get a better, more formal sense of what the priorities of the communities are. Does that sound right?
Send the
I believe-
question to her.
We'll do.
I believe that also one of her desires is to get all of the municipalities in the COG functioning within the COG.
Active, participating.
Yes.
I mean, she has a whole list of objectives that are currently not in place.
That's correct.
And since we do have a very good system of our own at this time, I think we would be noticed in our absence.
And we could become a spokesman for the COG.
My point.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if that's, something we have to stay awake at night worrying about, but I know that that's one of her desires. From a marketing standpoint, it certainly makes sense.
All right, so that'll be on our agenda for next week. We will put it on the agenda for April 17th legislative meeting. Fair enough. Anything else on QV COG model recycling resolution? Once, twice, gone. Does anybody else have any other old business for us to discuss? Gone. New business. Number one on our list of new business is Sewickley Memorial Day celebration contribution. I can tee this up. I was going through the checks last week, and there was a check there for $20.
25.
$25 to the Sewickley Memorial Day Fund. And it seemed insincere to me. And my take on this is that Aleppo spends $0 on recreation, $0? $0 on parks and recreation. We know damn well that our residents go to that parade. And I think giving $25 is embarrassing. So I asked Gwen to put that on our agenda for us to discuss increasing our contribution to that Memorial Day Fund.
Almost as embarrassing as the sign on their gate that says no dumping.
I agree with everything Matt said, except in this letter, it says no public tax dollars are used, which confuses me.
I mean, everybody in this room, I assume, got the envelope I got this week, a request personally to contribute the same.
No, even the $25
Yeah, right.
doesn't fit. It says no public tax dollars are used. I mean, I agree. If that sentence weren't there, $25 is an embarrassment. But if I give $25 and this is in their distribution, it's wrong.
Call- yeah, call the
Well, George, that's a Commissioner,
alternative fact.
Vice President Jones, that's a great, great catch. You are why we have citizen government. It's true. All right, well, why don't we ask about that, huh?
It's an alternative fact.
Takes care of that one.
So let's see here. We're gonna, Vice President Jones, do I hear that as a motion to ask Sewickley
You
or
do.
ask to articulate what you want to do here? What's the motion?
I move that Vice President Jones asks Sewickley whether they will accept taxpayer dollars.
And they'll say, in whatever.
Yeah.
Do you want Vice President Jones to do that, or you want Gwen to do that?
Gwen.
Thanks, Dan. I think you tried. Good try, Dan.
You know, Gwen, there's certain things we just can't help ourselves.
I know it.
I want,
Should have just written my name.
I want Manager Patterson to ask Sewickley for clarification of the disconnect between public contributions and the statement of no public tax dollars are used.
Have Manager Patterson ask Sewickley for clarification of the disconnect between what?
The use of public tax dollars and the statement in the solicitation letter that says no public tax dollars are used.
Maybe what he means is not, he doesn't use any of his own citizens' tax dollars. There's no more.
It just stands out to me. Give them tax money and say there's none involved. Doesn't work.
All right, so Vice President Jones, the motion that I have drafted here is have Manager Patterson ask Sewickley for clarification of the disconnect between the use of public tax dollars and the statement in the solicitation letter saying that no tax dollars are used. Do I have that accurate?
I think that's pretty simple.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Next on here, we have Pension Chief Administrative Officer Resolution.
It's a formality. We have the non-uniform pension is held at PSAB, MRT, Pennsylvania State Association of Boroughs Municipal Retirement Trust. And they need to have a chief administrative officer designated, and that's the person who can deal with any administrative costs and sign off on certain forms for the plan. And that's,
And that be you.
it's me.
That'd
This
be
one I'll
you.
take. This one I'll be glad to take. So next week, I would ask if we could put this on the agenda
Legislative
to.
agenda.
Okay. So all we need to do is put it on the legislative agenda. Okay. Next is Emergency Operations Plan Resolution.
You got copies in your packet of the updated emergency operations plan. I don't know how many, a lot of the terms don't appear to be any different. It's just a freshening of it. And readoption, Judy made a few changes, and then she may have a few people that need to be reassigned for the committees in case of emergency. Like Dan, I think you're getting a term with something this time. So
So this is an action item for next week
It is.
also.
Yep.
Okay.
just like to have it, so you have a week to read it before,
So this was written by Judy or
Yes.
someone in there.
and it needs to be readopted as the official plan. And then she'll be back to us with some other information after that regarding other trainings and exercises that we need to do.
So we're putting this on the legislative agenda for next week. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Next is no parking signs.
In your packet, I can't remember if it was last month or 2 months ago, there was a conversation with Chief Nicholas about a possibility of needing no parking on the bend during snow events signs on Weber Road. And the chief did provide a safety letter saying that if the Public Works Department felt that it was necessary to put those signs up, at the Benz on Weber, that he concurred as far as it being a safety condition. So you have the letter, and it is up to you to decide if you want to actually put signs up, or if you want to think about it, or whatever you want to do.
Well, it's something we would do next week, right? We'd adopt a resolution authorizing Public Works Department to post signs as appropriate,
Yeah, motion,
given
yeah.
the weather conditions.
So assuming that we're not going to vote on that, Commissioner Dara, do I hear you making a motion that we will table until next week, authorizing the Public Works Department to post signs as necessary?
I second.
All right, so then there's a motion and a second. It's on the table, authorizing the Public Works Department to post signs as necessary. I move that we table that 1 week.
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second. This is to table that for 1 week. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say no. Motion carries. We'll talk about that next week. All right, any other new business?
I do have one other thing. I got a letter from Judy at the Manor, and it's a request for some action or some permissions for something in one of the islands. A small slate wall in front of 101 to 105 Sewickley Heights Drive has been falling apart from being run over on multiple occasions. I have sent a proposal to the board of the Manor volunteering to pay for the wall if Bob will install it. Because it is in the island, I need the township's approval to place a 2-stone interlocking retaining wall in place of the shale one. It will be the same footprint following the existing curve. It will just look prettier. In the past, the township's position for anything involving the islands has always been, we don't maintain them, we don't cut the grass, we don't. So if their landscape committee wants to put a footpath or something like that across the islands, in the past, we have not had any objections to that. So our only concern is giving there enough room to put snow when they plow.
Is that the very first island?
I think so.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
That,
yeah.
that was really what I was hearing.
It's where the
about
sign is.
As well. That, you know, where in between where Judy's house is and the other corner, there's that little tree that Adam put in. And there's shale there that gets routinely smacked down by everybody. And she's trying to hold the soil in there because she plants in there, summer season. And she came to us and asked us if she paid for materials, would we build the wall? And we're okay with that, but I said to her, we would have to get.
So you've approved it,
Well, we'll approve it tomorrow night.
then it conditioned on our approval.
I would move that we respond to the request indicating that we have no objection to the proposal, provided that the cost is borne by the requestor or the homeowners association, however that may be.
Well, it's actually the resident, the homeowner, because we're providing labor. It's just gonna be a little century stone wall with a couple of rails.
Right.
And it will hold that dirt in there.
So what's going to happen when it gets hit?
It'll probably fall down. No, it should be a little bit more.
It'll leave a
It
bigger
should be a
dent
little
than the
bit
trucks.
more
Yeah.
Resilient than the shale is. The shale there is just.
Yeah, right.
It's not, locked in. It should make it, and it should look more attractive.
Okay, so there's a motion on the table that we respond to the request indicating that we have no objection to the proposal, provided the cost is borne by the resident.
Cost of installation and maintenance. And I second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Everybody see what you're voting on up there? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Motion carries. Do we have any other new business? Do we have any citizen participation?
That was it.
While we have you here, do we want to talk about deer stuff? There was some discussion that went on off calendar. We want to put that on the record?
I can just say that one of the group that we had invited to come and give a presentation has declined to come and give a presentation to the board.
So does that mean, so obviously that means that they're not,
They'd like to maintain as much anonymity as they
Yeah.
can.
I think that their comments about what had occurred are very apropos for us to be sensitive to that.
And what do you mean by that?
I would not care to see demonstrations out in front of the building here or,
PETA, okay, PETA.
oh, absolutely, they'd be all over like a new suit. And in addition, as you know, I approached Masonic Village, who approached Elizabethtown, and the directors at Elizabethtown declined to participate with us, basically for that same reason. Said that there would be ladies up there and residents up there that would be.
Well, there are other municipalities nearby that have actually undertaken such programs.
I'm aware of 4 or 5 of them that have, but
With this
believe-
outfit? With this same outfit?
Yes.
I have a little bit of information if you'd like to, because I don't think anybody here was at the annual meetings. We had the game, the North Area Game Commissioner come to the Banner annual meeting because, as you probably all know, we had sent out a survey to our residents, just to take a temperature about what sort of interest there might be in such a thing. And interestingly, we had a lot of heat on both sides of that issue. I would call it a 50-50 survey. So not enough, there wasn't an overwhelming mandate to move forward with such a thing, but there was also quite a bit of interest in doing such a thing. So we invited the game commissioner to come, and he gave an interesting presentation and pointed us to a number of websites that had some interesting information. But two things in the presentation that I thought were very interesting. One was a very strong, even though it's not illegal to do so, a very strong recommendation against feeding wildlife around our neighborhood, which is something I think we really need to try to encourage people to do. And the second thing was that unchecked, the deer population will easily double within 2 years.
Wow.
That's a pretty scary
That's,
number.
whoa.
When you think about how many deer you see on a daily basis around Aleppo in general, to think that would double in 2 years is pretty.
and deer have a rather strange habit. Even if they do double in a short period of time and begin to really put some pressure on their own feed, they will not leave. Other
Sally, do you
animals will
think
take
that
off.
the
Deer will not.
homeowners association would be willing to give the culling outfit property access in the manner to carry?
Again, based on the
50-50.
survey that we conducted, I don't see
It's not a
a clear
majority.
mandate to move forward with that. It's really, as most things in Manor are, it's really a 50-50 thing. And I don't,
Well,
include
And
the
I think
survey
that's your
again.
point.
So if there's no property that's available to actually carry out the program, it's kind of a dead issue.
Well, refresh my
Well, yeah.
memory. Wasn't there a deer hunt above the pond across from Fern Hollow 10 years ago?
I don't know anything about that.
I think,
I
matter of fact, I'm almost sure there was. And
don't know.
they used the property as you're leaving the manor on Swickley Heights Drive to the right, all that, where
All the
the
woods.
trail is.
Yeah.
I believe they put archers there.
But that's not a Aleppo Township.
No, I know, but
That's
that's potential property.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
I'm willing to.
I'm pretty
we have
sure.
a new board
It was
now.
very
I'm willing
quiet.
To bring this issue up to the board at our next meeting and ask them if there's any interest in that, that, there's no harm in doing that.
Okay.
Gwen, would you call Swickley Heights and ask about that historic event?
You're saying it was at the nature center?
It was across the street, which
Yeah.
is Swickley Heights. I'm almost certain it happened.
In that wooded area
Yeah.
across from the single
I
family.
think they put a couple guys in stands, but it happened discreetly.
Must have been.
I don't know how they could just do that. I mean, that could be very dangerous.
Well, but it wasn't in our borough. It wasn't in our municipality.
But I mean, even if it was anywhere.
You
can't put
Gwen can find
somebody
out. I'm almost certain it
trees,
occurred.
Arrows and shoot.
They shoot
But
down.
they may be notified.
They use
Yeah.
tree stands because they shoot down.
That's true.
Right.
They do go down. So if you're
The
short,
way this kind
you're in
of,
trouble.
activity was proposed to us is that it's all archery, it's all, archers who can pass a pretty rough test. Every arrow is identified and, rounded up at the end of each day so that there aren't arrows lying around. They're numbered and collected. There are a lot of, things in place to minimize the risk. And like you say, it's tree stand shooting down, so it's not like arrows are flying around above your head.
Okey-doke.
So what are we doing with this? So, I mean, we're going to hear from Swickley Heights, but to what end?
Well, Sally's gonna raise it tomorrow at their board meeting, and we'll get a response as to
It's
whether
1/3 of the
they'd be willing to
population.
cooperate or not.
Okay.
I mean, the organization that does this with bow and arrow does require that you provide them with 2 or 3 sites where they can have access that
Yeah.
meets their criteria.
Another possibility, because he does allow hunters on his property, is Minnick's property along Glen Mitchell River Road.
Right.
And they're
he's got a
often
pretty
there.
good,
First one.
pathway through there.
Well, they
Once
can
he
be herded.
starts to build,
You use my deck.
They can be herded. Yeah, so if you wanted to sort of nudge them over into the property where it can occur, it will work.
Okay. So is this something we think we can talk about next week and get a sense? Do you think you can let us know?
I'll let you know what our board says tomorrow.
Great. So we'll put that on the,
I think one of the other issues as far as Masonic Village is concerned is they've done keeping track of it, and there's only been 2 cars damaged in 5 years.
gee.
So everybody's going, what deer? But the truth of the matter is, we have herds.
Well, and they
We have
don't.
herds of them up
Yes,
there.
we can lighten up.
all right.
I'll
Any-
have you over for the 5 o'clock feeding.
Mhm.
Any other new business? Any other old business? Any other citizen participation? Are we going to executive session? Are we?
Yes.
Okay. So it is now 8:08 p.m. and we are going to go into executive session. When we come back from executive session, we will not resume
Thanks, Sally.
the video. So this will be the end of the video for the night. Thank you all.